Kabul airport may have been averted. The US says it destroyed a vehicle carrying suicide bombers, a reminder of the ongoing danger for those now left behind.
I have no idea what's going to happen to them because I'm really worried about them. The civilians are dying for no reason every day.
Also on the programme, in the US, a record storm bears down on St. Louis on the anniversary of Hurricane Katrina.
It's a new world record for Hannah Cockcroft.
5 more golds for Paralympics GB as Hannah Cockcroft comes top in her 3rd Games. And crawling to the summit, the double amputee who conquered Snowdon.
It was emotional when I got to the top. It was very emotional.
This is ITV News with Duncan Golestani.
Good evening. President Biden last night warned another attack in Afghanistan was imminent, and today we learned just how close that threat may have been. This afternoon, there was at least one explosion in Kabul that it appears to have been caused by the United States trying to stop another suicide attack on the airport there. Our US correspondent Emma Murphy is in Washington for us. Emma, details are still emerging on this. What more do we know?
Well, the Pentagon has been offering some further guidance on what's gone on in Kabul in the last couple of hours. We're told that they believe they acted in self-defense with an over-the-horizon drone strike on a vehicle that was heading towards Kabul airport. We are told that within that vehicle, it's thought that there were a number of Islamic State in Afghanistan operatives who were carrying suicide vests, and they were heading directly for one of the gates where people have been gathering to try and leave the country. We're told there was a single drone strike on that car, but it caused multiple explosions because of the amount of explosives within the vehicle itself. We also are getting reports of a second attack. It's unclear exactly what it is, but it was a rocket attack around the area where we think a child may have lost their life. The Pentagon say that they are assessing what that situation is and whether or not there were any other civilian casualties. But they are very clear that this was seen by all the military officials and the president as an act of self-defense to protect those at the airport.
Emma, as well as giving that order to strike in Kabul, closer to home there was a solemn duty for the president today.
Indeed, the President and the First Lady are currently at Dover Air Force Base, where the bodies of the 13 service personnel that were killed in that attack on Thursday are being returned to their families. It is something that's described as a dignified transfer. The bodies of those slain service personnel were carried from the plane in what are called transfer cases rather than coffins, and they will then be taken away and their families will be given time to actually stand with the caskets that their children are being returned in.
Emma Murphy in Washington, thank you. Here, the British Prime Minister has offered British veterans of Afghanistan his profound thanks as the UK operation to evacuate Kabul officially ends. The final flights have now left, but the government admits it ran out of time to save hundreds of people. And many of them and their families are still calling for British help tonight, as Mark Mallet reports.
On its final approach into RAF Brize Norton, the final evacuation flight out of Afghanistan, marking the end of a 20-year campaign in the country and the end of the largest evacuation mission since the Second World War. The Prime Minister Boris Johnson, in an open letter, thanked the armed forces for their heroic efforts in difficult and hostile circumstances, which had seen the evacuation of thousands of British nationals alongside Afghans who will now start their new lives in the UK. But there's acknowledgement too that many Afghans have been left behind. This man is a refugee now living in the UK, but his wife and children remain stuck in Kabul after being caught up in Friday's bomb blast. We're not showing his face in order to protect his identity.
I have no idea what's going to happen to them because I'm really worried about them because the Taliban take over and nobody knows what's going to happen to the country and even the people. The civilians are dying for no reason every day.
And in a cruel twist of fate, his brother, who is a British citizen, remains stuck too after being threatened by the Taliban as he tried to leave.
You were over 10,000 people waiting there. As soon as you get near the door, the Taliban, they start firing. So then the people start to run and push. The Taliban fighter, they came and they say there's no flights, everything is cancelled, just go back. I spoke a little bit English. He said this is not England. You need to speak your language. Then he just hit me with his AK-47. Then he said, shame on you. Why are you going there?
In scorching heat and under the watchful eye of the Taliban, hundreds of people still gather at Kabul airport, still hoping to escape a new way of life they fear will rob them of everything. Hope is all they have left.
My name is Toriala Ahmed, I'm citizen British,
This man's prized possession, his British passport, expires soon. He says his wife and children have travelled with him. Now he doesn't know what to do. 15,000 Afghans were evacuated by UK troops over the course of the last 2 weeks. Many will have worked with these men and women who now leave the country knowing others face a very uncertain future. Mark Mallet, ITV News.
Our political correspondent Shihab Khan is here with me now. Shihab, is there anything the government can do to help those people who have been left behind?
Yeah, what we've heard from the government over the last few weeks is that there is a long-standing commitment to help the people of Afghanistan. It doesn't stop just because the evacuation flights have stopped. When I was speaking to the Defence Secretary last week, he was saying that they are working on trying to get people into the UK if they are eligible, if they can get to third countries, so if they can get to some of the neighbouring countries. Now, that's going to be a challenge. It all comes down to how the Taliban choose to run the country. That's the sort of determining factor here. Now, this morning I spoke to Lisa Nandy, Labour's shadow foreign secretary, and she was saying that the government has underestimated the size of the problem. She's been collating the number of messages that her Labour colleagues have been getting. She thinks there could be up to 5,000 people here who are stuck and eligible to come to the United Kingdom. Now, the truth is there's been a lot of pledges. There's a commitment there from the government to try and help these people as much as they can. But it will ultimately come down to how the Taliban choose to run the country to determine whether or not the British government can actually help in the short term.
Shihab, thank you. Now, in a more uplifting update from Afghanistan, a female Paralympian from the country will be able to take part in the Tokyo Games. We filmed with Taekwondo competitor Zakia Hudadadi last Sunday in Kabul when she had been refused evacuation and thought her dream of making it to the Games was gone. But since then, she and fellow athlete Hossein Rassouli were evacuated to France and have now arrived in Japan. A spokesman for the Paralympic Committee said welcoming them had been emotional.
Having seen images of the athletes being evacuated on a plane on Monday, to see them in person in front of us, safe and well in the Paralympic Village, is something I don't think we'll ever forget.
Britain's Paralympians have earned another 5 gold medals in Tokyo. Hannah Cockcroft was among them, setting a new world record in the T34 100 metres. It's the 6th gold of her career and means she now has gold medals from 3 consecutive games. Helen Keenan has more.
Another day at the Paralympics means another world record smashed by Great Britain. Hannah Cockcroft in Tokyo today, searching for her 6th title.
Denigan's looking very strong indeed, but Cockcroft's coming back at her.
And to win her 3rd consecutive T34 100 metre competition. Up against teammate Carrier Dinigan, it took a powerful effort from Cockcroft, but she secured the top spot while beating her own global best with a record time of 16.39 seconds, with her fellow Brit bagging 2nd.
So special. This medal is so amazing. I think, to win for 3 Paralympic Games in a row is massive, and every single Games, the pressure has just got bigger and bigger. Obviously, the class has got stronger, it's got bigger, we've got new girls, and I've just had to keep my eye on that all the time and outperform them.
It was a historic victory in the wheelchair rugby. Great Britain looking for their first Paralympic gold in the sport, taking on the champions, the USA.
Great Britain are the Paralympic champions.
The scoreline staying tight for much of the match, but Britain sealing the deal in the final quarter with a 54-49 victory.
British star is shining.
Elsewhere, GB's Lauren Steadman won gold in the PTS5 triathlon.
She always believed she could become a Paralympic champion, and she's done it.
I don't think I actually realised the impact of what I would feel when I crossed that line if I managed to achieve the title today. And it kind of just I wasn't going to celebrate until I'd crossed that line, because I know that in triathlon anything can happen.
And GB made their mark in the men's race too, with George Peasgood picking up a silver. In the water, it was a double gold for Britain in the rowing events. PR2 mixed doubles sculls pair, Lauren Rolls and Lawrence Whiteley, are already the reigning world and European champions. Today, they defended them.
Great Britain winning the gold medal again.
Followed by more glory with the PR3 mixed Cox 4 team also taking gold. On day 5, Paralympics GB now only second to China in the medals table. Helen Keenan, ITV News.
And as Helen said there, today's medals put Great Britain firmly in second place overall, with 23 gold medals, 19 silver and 18 bronze. A 51-year-old man has died after a family of paddleboarders were rescued in the Solent. Lifeboat crews were called to a beach near Exbury and a man was taken to hospital where he died. 2 teenagers and a woman were also offered help at the scene. A man has been charged with 2 counts of murder after 2 bodies were discovered in central London last week. Lee Peacock was arrested after a week-long search. He'll appear in court tomorrow, charged with the murders of Sharon Pickles and Clinton Ashmore. And one of the pioneers of reggae music has died in hospital in Jamaica. Lee Scratch Perry was a producer and performer who worked with artists including Bob Marley and the Wailers. He was 85. Within the past hour, one of the most powerful hurricanes ever to strike the United States has made landfall in Louisiana. Forecasters are warning it could hit the state even harder than Hurricane Katrina, which destroyed parts of New Orleans exactly 16 years ago today. Nick Thatcher has the latest.
Across much of the southern United States, Ida is already making her presence known. Over the next few hours, this Category 4 storm, just one below the highest level, is predicted to bring catastrophic winds and life-threatening storm surges. And it could be stronger than Hurricane Katrina, which devastated much of New Orleans 16 years ago today.
It's going to come in with sustained winds of over 150 miles per hour when you get to a Category 5 storm at 157. So there's virtually no difference between a very, very strong Cat 4 or a Cat 5 storm. And so we're absolutely doing everything that we can now.
Already, thousands have heeded the warnings, filled up their cars and headed inland.
They're scared. Of course they're scared. A lot of people are scared. I'm scared. As you go from town to town, all the hotels are filled up. So you're just riding further and further.
But others are determined to stay put and weather the storm.
Most of my neighbors are staying. I'm staying. I did as much as I could yesterday and then left the windows for today.
They're relying on new flood defences to keep the worst out. But tonight, communities across this coastline are nervously waiting and watching and hoping history won't be repeated. Nick Thatcher, ITV News.
In football, Rangers are now unbeaten in 7 Old Firm derbies in a row. Philippe Helander's second-half header, the only goal as Rangers beat Celtic 1-0. In the Premier League, Jadon Sancho and Rafael Varane have made their first starts for Manchester United. They're currently leading Wolves 1-0 thanks to Mason Greenwood's strike. And in Belgium, heavy rain has disrupted the Grand Prix at Spa. Poor visibility from spray initially made driving too dangerous. The race did finally get underway, but was stopped after just 2 laps, with Max Verstappen taking half points for winning a shortened race. And finally, a double amputee has climbed to the top of Snowdon without the use of prosthetics. Paul Ellis spent 13 hours crawling his way to the summit to raise money for a charity that sends children who have lost limbs on holiday. He lost both his legs after suffering a spinal injury in a fall. The 3,500-foot climb left him with blisters, but he said it was worth it.
It was emotional when it got to the top. It was very emotional. But it was good. I enjoyed the day, and everybody on the mountain was superb. It's been fantastic. Yeah, it's amazing. Yeah.
And that is it. We're back with the late news at 10:30. Until then, have a very good evening. Bye-bye.